So we're going to look at 4 different forage type legumes here. The first one here is hairy vetch, which is actually not used very much as a forage crop. The seeds have some toxicity issues for livestock. So it's grown mostly as a cover crop, and it is an incredibly productive legume plant, which means it grows a lot of biomass. You can see here this was a single row of planted seed that's spread and vined here. And it has a very classic compound leaf shape. So one leaf actually branches into multiple parallel leaflets along the stem. Hairy vetch, because of its vigorous biomass production and because it's in the legume family, in the Fabaceae, it fixes an incredible amount of nitrogen. So farmers use this in between their cash crops, generally to cover the ground, fix nitrogen, which can then provide nutrients for the following crop, as well as to cover the soil and provide other benefits. Now, because of its mat-like growth form, it's often grown in partnership with a grass. And so often you'll see rye and vetch grown together, where the grass grows tall and the vetch then uses that for support, which prevents it from being so difficult to manage later when it's turned in. So that's hairy vetch, mostly a nitrogen-fixing legume cover crop. Okay, and right behind the vetch here, we have red clover. Red clover is a perennial, unlike our hairy vetch, which is actually a winter annual. So it's planted in the fall and grows through the winter and goes to flower the next spring. Clover is a perennial that is grown mostly as a forage or a pasture, and pasture mixes, especially in more humid environments. It's often grown with grasses for grazing for cattle. Very high nutritive value because it's a legume, so it has high nitrogen content. It can also be used as a cover crop. So because of its nice tiny seed, the seed can be broadcast into a winter wheat crop in the spring, where it will germinate underneath that growing wheat crop, and then it will be established once the wheat is harvested later in the summer, providing a nice cover, ground cover, as well as, again, as a legume, it's fixing nitrogen from its roots. It has a very classic trifoliate leaf shape, very classic of our legumes. And it is mostly grown in cooler, wetter climates in Europe or northeastern US. So this one here is sweet clover. Sweet clover used to be one of our most commonly grown forage crops, and it used to be as common as alfalfa. But there are several reasons why alfalfa became more popular and more common than sweet clover, but it has a lot of nice attributes. So sweet clover is something you often actually see in the roadside ditches as kind of a weedy clover. It's incredibly drought tolerant and has a massive taproot. It is more of a biennial plant rather than a long-lived perennial. And it produces a lot of biomass, fixes a lot of nitrogen, but in particular that deep taproot is very useful for breaking up soil compaction. The problem with sweet clover is that the ratio of leaves to stem was not as good as our alfalfa. And so that's why alfalfa today is our major forage legume that is grown around the world, really. In other parts of the world, it's often referred to as lucerne instead of alfalfa. And it is a perennial plant, long-lived perennial, and so it can get cut and collected for hay multiple times in a growing season, often as many as 5 different cuttings in a year. So it is bee pollinated in terms of its growth. It has some really interesting seed pod shapes, and it's an incredibly productive plant, tolerant to a wide variety of soil conditions, and also as a legume it fixes a lot of nitrogen in its roots, and that then is very useful in crop rotations with things like corn that are high nitrogen demanding crops.